And now, welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast. This is a very, very chilly January 28th, where we are in Bradford, Pennsylvania. It was, I don't know about up by your place, Fred, but it was 1 degree this morning with a minus 10 wind chill. So, to say the least, it was a bit nippy this morning, but we're glad to have everybody with us, and wherever you are, we hope it's warmer than it is here. So, but anyways, this is episode 243, and just as a reminder, we are simulcasting to our Two Guys Drinking Coffee Facebook page as well, and we have a very special guest with us today, and this is kind of a unique topic that we haven't covered before, but we've got Mark Baker here with the Soft Lights Foundation to talk to us about LEDs and some of the unknown or hidden dangers of these lighting devices. And it was eye-opening to me, and I thought it was a good way to share his information, because who knows, it might help somebody out there. But before we get started, let's do a little housekeeping as we always do. If you would please help us overcome the algorithms that are shadow banning us, not only on Facebook, but on Rumble. I put our link on the Facebook comments there for the Rumble link, but it turns out that some people can't find us just by getting a notification. They actually have to come looking for us. So wherever you're watching us, if you could hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever it happens to be, share if you're on Facebook, you'll help us overcome those algorithms that are shadow banning us. And also on the comments, you're going to see every once in a while, I put a shameless plug in there to help us, just to help us keep this show on the air. This is not free. It costs us money for the platform and so on and so forth, and we would just appreciate any help that you can give us. But before we get into the show, let me just, again, another shameless plug, do a little 30-second spot from one of our sponsors.
Need to get your brand noticed, remembered, and loved? At Everything Printed Promo, we turn your logo into walking, talking, shareable billboards. Whatever the occasion, we make you look amazing every time. Pens, shirts, drinkware, tech gadgets, you dream it, we print it perfectly. Visit everythingprintedpromo.com or call 888-619-9286 today. First-time customers get 15% off. Let's make your brand unforgettable.
Okay, very good. All right, let's get into the show. As I mentioned, our guest is Mark Baker. He is the founder and president of the Soft Lights Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to the protection of people and the environment from the harms of visible light radiation emitted by products that use light-emitting diodes, which are LED lights. The organization was started in 2021 after Mark's own ordeal with the potentially harmful effects of LED lighting. The stated goal of the organization is to seek to have federal agencies comply with the law, specifically 21 USC 360, I think it's II, which mandates that federal agencies publish performance standards for radiation emitted by electronic products, which includes visible radiation emitted by LEDs. LED lighting is everywhere. Some of the products that use LEDs include LED vehicle lights such as headlights, tail lights, brake lights, turn signals, backup lights, and dashboard displays. LED strobe lights such as on police, fire, and ambulance vehicles, LED general services lamps, and other devices that Mark will tell us about. But what I want to do is I want to bring Mark on right now and have him tell his own story, how and about lights in general, or LED lights in general. So let me bring Mark on here on the scene. Mark, good morning. Welcome.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Fred. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're quite welcome. And we want to thank you. Mark, just so everybody knows, Mark is on the West Coast, so he's making a sacrifice by getting on at 6 a.m. his time. So I hope you had a cup of coffee or something to help you wake up there, Mark. So
Just rolled out of bed to this show, Jim.
okay. Well, Mark, I want to start out before we even get into any questions or anything. Just tell us your story in your own words and what has happened and how that how that got you to found that Soft Lights Foundation. So go ahead, take it away.
Well, thanks for this opportunity to share. It's sort of tragic. It's not something I chose to get into. Around 2015, 2016 is when I started to notice these LEDs. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley at the time. I was a middle school math teacher. And these LEDs started popping up in the street lights. I started seeing them in the car headlights, floodlights, and then later the flashing lights on police cars. And I was getting overwhelmed by this light. There were multiple things going on, but I feel like I was being struck, being attacked. And the blue rich light, the white light, what they call white, right? But really it's got blue in it. This was really psychologically strange for me. I was seeing something that I'd never seen in my life or felt, like some sort of alien world. And this was really disturbing for me, and I couldn't really handle it. So over time, as I was being struck, this sort of like, I felt like I was in a weird world. So I would try to get to my school where I was a middle school math teacher, and I would get to work and be sort of frazzled. And so over the next couple of years, as it kind of got, all these LEDs started getting worse and worse, it became kind of more and more frazzled. They installed LED streetlights outside of my apartment. So I lived on the second floor. So we used to have those nice, soft, amber, high pressure sodium lights. Mm-hmm. So there's, I'm on the second floor. I'm looking over the street. I liked it. I could see outside my kitchen window, and it was comforting. Suddenly they switched to these 5,000 Kelvin blue rich LED streetlights. And I came home one night and my apartment was flooded with this hideous light. I pulled the curtains, but it's so powerful. It was just inundating my room, even through the curtains. And so I went to the city of Sunnyvale, which is where I lived. I got a petition. I walked around my neighborhood and said, can you do something about this? And this was my sort of first experience with bureaucracy and the way government officials work and the way they think and the way they tell you stuff and then the way they don't really care. So we did manage a meeting with the city manager. So I got an astronomer that showed up and a person in my neighborhood who had felt the same way. And so there was a handful of us and we all told him our story. He said, thank you. And then, really nothing. They managed, I got after about a year or so pestering them. They changed it from 5,000 Kelvin to, it's been a while now, maybe 4,000 Kelvin or maybe even 3,000 Kelvin. So they did reduce it, but it still wasn't the nice soft amber that we used to have. So that was one thing. And then these headlights on the cars, they just get sharper and sharper and even during the daytime. So one day I show up at school and they had installed what they called a security light at the top of one of the roofs of the school, single story school. And it struck me in the eyes like, it's, whatever, 6 o'clock in the morning and it was raining and this sharp light. And I was like, oh my God, why'd they do that? So I contacted my principal and I said, this has got to be, why are they pointing this in our eyes? So,
right.
Okay. So fourth period, he came in and he told me that no, the school feels that they need this for safety purposes. They're not going to turn it off. And this had been going on for 3 years, so 2019. And at that point, 3 years of being struck by this light, I broke down. I had a mental breakdown. Never in my life anything close to that. And it was a total life-changing, life-altering experience. And I just started screaming and crying and just all kinds of weird stuff. And they called the police and the medics, and they put me in handcuffs and they hauled me away to the mental hospital.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I didn't have my cell phone with me, and I was there with other people that were suffering just like me from different reasons. And so I was in the hospital for 4 days. And at the end of that, I no longer that breakdown. I couldn't teach anymore. I didn't have patience anymore. I lost a lot of weight, and everything was just so. This is when I became a full-time activist. This is when I started to try and figure out what in the world is with this LED light. And I've dedicated my time since then to learning the physics and learning bureaucracy and government regulations and networking with people around the world and all the other things that go along with it.
Okay. So you found other people that were experiencing similar symptoms to what you experienced, and everybody was kind of tying this to the LED lights.
Yeah. So when it was new, back in 2016, I found a Facebook group started by another person called Ban Blinding LEDs. So I joined that Facebook group, and that's when I started to discover, oh, it's not just me. And we didn't know back then what the problem was. We were sharing information, trying to understand. There was very little on the internet to understand. Nobody had actually, quantified what the problem was. But the first thing we discovered is the blue light. This is a hazardous wavelength. And yes, it's in the sky, but it turns out to control kind of how we move around through the day, when we wake up, when we feel hungry, and our moods. And this is called our circadian rhythms. And the LED light has a bizarre, not all of them, but has a bizarre spike in this blue, which also is hazardous for our eyes. So this powerful blue light will damage the cells in our eyes. And so you don't want a lot of it, but it's an important part of our life, but you don't want it the way the LEDs were made, with a large spike of blue and then no infrared. And the infrared part is something we've learned recently. The missing infrared is very important.
There's actually infrared in the LEDs?
No, the other way. So,
okay.
Yeah. And so what the Department of Energy did is say, oh, this is an energy efficient light. So, it saves you money and it doesn't use as much power. And so it's really great, except that it was not true. It's not energy efficient. It's just low quality.
Yeah.
And
that was one.
Go ahead.
That was going to be one of my comments. You got to it before I could bring it up. The promise of these LED lights was that they were going to last longer and they were going to be so much better for the environment and all this. And I've found exactly the opposite. Number one, they burn out just as fast as incandescent lights have. I don't know if you've, Fred, or if you've experienced that same thing, but I don't think you're any better.
They say they'll last 10 years, but they don't last 10 years. They might last just like any other regular light bulb.
So, Mark, can you tell us, from a light point of view, when it hits your eyes or whatever, and I don't mean to get too scientific on this, but the difference between LEDs and the incandescent lights that we all grew up with, or even the fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lights, like in industrials, are not that much better, but they're definitely different than LEDs. Can you share with us what you have found the difference being that affects us? Yeah,
absolutely. So basically, you touched on it. Ever since Edison invented the electric light 100 plus years ago, the quality of the light has been getting worse and worse. Our government has been telling us this is for energy efficiency and such, but actually light is critical for our lives and we need quality light. And so fluorescent tubes were a lower quality, and LEDs is bottom of the barrel. So incandescent light bulbs are a burning filament, and so you get it's called a black body radiator, and it emits a bunch of wavelengths. In the visible part of the spectrum, there's very little blue, there's quite a bit of red. So an incandescent light bulb, we will assign it what's called a color temperature, or in LEDs, a correlated color temperature. So an incandescent light bulb is around 2,800 Kelvin. And this gives you a sense of how much blue there is. Not very much blue in an incandescent.
Okay.
And then an incandescent emits mostly infrared light, which we feel as heat on our skin. And
Right.
until recently, the scientists weren't aware of how important that is for our mood and for the way our cells operate. I'm not a biologist or anything, so I don't know the cell part that well, but there's mitochondria that rely on this infrared. We need that infrared to sort of keep things functioning. And a major study just came out a couple of weeks ago that showed that our reading ability to use our eyes is reduced by LED lights. We don't read or see as well because the infrared is missing. So when they came out with the LEDs, there's multiple problems with it. It's a digital light, so it's coming from this flat chip instead of a curved surface.
Right.
So because it's flat like that, it emits it like a beam of light. So it's no longer coming out like the sun would or an incandescent in all the directions. It's now a beam. So we're kind of walking around with these little spotlights on us. That's a big problem. Then what they call the spectral power distribution. Standard LEDs will have a big spike of this hazardous blue light, and then almost no red and zero infrared. And so I'm particularly sensitive to it myself, but we are all sensitive to this. So it's impacting our moods. And now we just learned it's impacting our ability to see. And so that was the second thing. And then the third thing is temporal properties, which is a digital flicker. And because the government didn't set any standards for the drivers for LEDs, those manufacturers can make them in any way they want. And so even if you can't see the flicker, you're going to be feeling it. And so lower quality drivers are going to have sort of this pulsing effect. Many people report to us that they're getting a migraine, even seizures. And it's a lot of times to do with this flicker, even if you're not seeing it. So we have these three different properties. The spatial properties are messed up. The spectral power distribution is something foreign. And then the digital flicker. Those are all just lower quality light. So LEDs is just bottom of the barrel, should not be used for illuminating things. I mean, you can use it for a little indicator in a laboratory somewhere. That's what it's good for, but it's not a healthy kind of a light.
Well, that's really where they first appeared. If you think about it, I'm in the IT industry and been working on computers and circuit boards for 40 years almost. And LEDs first appeared on the circuit boards as indicator lights. You never saw them anywhere else other than that. And then all of a sudden they make our reading lights and everything else with those. So it is interesting. And you mentioned there's the bright blue I've seen on cars where their lights actually look like it's a blue glow. And then others, and they're LEDs as well, but they're more of a yellow color, not blue anyway, less blue, I guess you'd say. Could you categorize the blue as being worse, or doesn't it matter? I mean, they're both bad regardless.
Oh yeah, the blue is terrible. This is
Okay.
If you were going to design headlights from scratch and say what's the best, you would not put blue if you're thinking of other people coming towards you, pedestrians or other drivers. And the problem with the auto industry and an organization called the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety is they give very little thought to the people coming towards us. Everything is sort of driver focused. And it turns out that according to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, that people can see farther and there are less solo crashes if you use this high intensity light. So the IIHS has pushed for many years to have brighter and brighter headlights. So when LEDs came out, right at the same time, the IIHS initiated a headlight rating system: fair, poor, good, and almost no halogen headlight will get the good rating. So the automakers wanted to get a good rating, so they switched to LED headlights. And so the LED headlights now are far more powerful, far more intense. They shine a heck of a lot of light down the road, and that supposedly allows drivers to see farther and not crash into things, right? But the formula that the IIHS used vastly underestimates the glare, which is the unwanted light that now is coming into our eyes from the car coming the other direction.
Mhm.
And so it's their formula that is really that, they're not the government, they're not setting the regulations, but the automakers have wanted to achieve this rating. And so they've done this through different ways. And so now we're getting blasted by really hot, really intense light. And then the blue light, that color temperature is around 6,500 Kelvin. So it's so much more blue than the incandescent. And the previous headlights that we had, which had a little halogen gas in it, were around 3,000 Kelvin. So it's far more blue. And then if you increase the intensity as well, it's like, oh my gosh, what a mistake. And so that's our biggest, the number of people that contact us and sign our petition on change.org, ban blinding headlights and save lives. We have almost 80,000 signatures now, because as far as LEDs go, this is the number one problem. Hey, I do not like driving at night anymore because my eyes hurt. I can't see this glare. This is the unwanted light. So this is the number one problem.
And Fred, I don't mean to jump in. If you want to jump in, go ahead. I'm just going to share that change.org just so people can see it. So this is change.org, and you can evidently sign the petition right there. Am I on the right page there, Mark?
You got to go to the specific one. Ban blinding headlights is the search. So if you click on search at the top there, ban blinding headlights.
On the search engine. Yeah.
Ban blinding headlights.
And it should pull up our petition. Yeah, that's the one with the big blue light right there.
Right there. Okay, so if you can go
I
on
always
there.
thought they created these things so that they can help the computers facial recognize people better. And I always thought there was a trick behind it, because it is really bad when you're driving on the road with another car coming at you. There's a point where you can't, you're just trusting that you're in the lane because you can't really see the car coming. And it's better when you pass.
Well, Tom made an interesting comment there. I'll put it up there. And it's to your point, Fred. If the government makes, a statement that they're better or whatever, don't trust them. and I'm kind of built that way. I don't trust the government anyway. And as a matter of fact, I was writing a note, Mark, as you were talking. And this is the conspiracy side of me, okay, the one that believes in geoengineering and other things that are pretty much killing us. I'm just wondering if the development of these LED lights was intentionally designed to harm people. Thoughts?
Well, I've been asked that before many times, and so I don't, no. I would say that the intentional harm is probably unlikely. However, the dishonesty by government officials is high. So back in 2005, Congress was well-intentioned, and they passed a law, the Energy Policy Act, to direct the Department of Energy to investigate whether this new solid-state lighting could replace the incandescent light bulb. And so that's fine. If you had a light source that was just as good as the incandescent, but using less energy, but just as good a quality, that's energy efficiency, and I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem is the way the systems work, the way the people in the government think, the officials, the high level of dishonesty. So the Department of Energy rushed into this and came back 2 years later and said, this is great stuff. Let's start using this. Well, they skipped a lot of parts. One of the things they were supposed to do is collaborate with the Food and Drug Administration. The FDA is actually mandated by Congress to regulate electromagnetic radiation. Well, that includes lasers, X-ray machines, microwave ovens. Yeah, so everything related with electromagnetic radiation is under the control of the FDA. So when LEDs came out, their job was to set regulations and work with other agencies, such as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the Department of Energy, FAA, CPSC, Department of Labor, OSHA, all these agencies. They were supposed to work with them, collaborate with them, and set these standards to make sure that this light was safe, and they've done none of that. So in 2007, Congress said, oh, okay, great. This is a great light. And so they set a minimum, what that's called a luminous efficacy, a minimum of 45 lumens for every watt of energy. So the government said, yes, we're going to force you to save energy. And so since incandescent light bulbs only emit around 10 lumens for every watt of energy, the government claimed that infrared is just wasted light. So let's get rid of it. And now we can increase how many lumens come out per watt of energy. But now we know that was actually a big bad decision, because the infrared was actually critical. And the DOE was supposed to work with the FDA to set the standards, and that never occurred.
You know, I'm always against mandates. I don't like the government telling me what I have to do or what I must buy or anything of that nature. LED lights, if they wanted to put them out there is one thing, but when the government banned, and I don't know the agencies or who did it, but you can't buy incandescent lights anymore, or at least not. Yeah, if you go down to the hardware store, you can't find incandescent lights. It's LEDs or those CFLs, and I'm not even sure you can find the CFLs anymore. They're all LEDs. But the idea that they take the choice away from you, I think, is wrong. Maybe you're not going to get them out of the street lights or the car headlights, but by gosh, in your own home, you should have the choice of what kind of lighting you put in. What Mark, in your home or your apartment, wherever you're living, you're dealing with LEDs. What are you doing? Are you able to still, maybe through the black market, get incandescent lights? So how do you deal with it?
Right. So in my own house, I've got this mixture of different kinds. And what happens is you can improve the LED, and so you can get sort of better quality ones, and you lower the color temperature. So if people aren't aware, if you go and you look on the label of the light bulb, and if it says 5,000 K, I would say stay away from that. That means high blue. This is not good for you, especially with the missing infrared. So then, you could buy 4,000 K and 3,000 K, and then typically for LED, it's down to around 2,700 K, which is around the same as an incandescent. So if you go to the store and buy a 2,700 K LED, it's going to be somewhat similar to incandescent. And yet, in my house, over my dining room table, I have an incandescent. This is the best. I will go over and actually just flip on the switch to feel the warmth and the quality of that incandescent light. Whereas I might have a 2,700 K somewhere else, it just doesn't have the same sort of emotional feel and quality. And that's because mostly the missing infrared, but also partially because of the spatial properties, and also perhaps because of the flicker. So if you have like a bedroom light, you can get a 2,200 Kelvin, an amber colored LED. And I have those. those actually could be okay because now you've reduced a lot of the blue. But there are certain people that cannot tolerate LED at all. And this is our real concern. When the government has mandated through their sort of trickery that only LEDs can now exist, and they haven't made sure that this is a safe light. The FDA hasn't done their part to publish the regulations to make sure that the drivers don't have the digital flicker. So now we've got people who contact me frequently from across the country and the world saying, I get these migraines, severe migraines anytime around. I personally feel it too. There's certain LEDs, if I go into a store, I almost can't go into a lot of stores anymore. I will start to feel this just overwhelming sense of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I'll actually literally run out of the store. And so other people have described this same thing. It's a combination of so many different kinds of wavelengths from so many different LEDs, the overhead lights with the blue rich. I have to put my hand over my eyes to shield because it's just too blue. And then other people are suffering seizures, literally seizing because of the LED light. So when consumers don't have a choice to choose a healthy, safe light like an incandescent, this is a major error by the government.
So,
Harold, go ahead, Fred.
One question. So Harold says he uses one. You're going the same thing. Is it the infrared that makes the warmth come off the light? Is that because he used it to warm up his water pump? He said in a couple statements up. He put on his statement. He said there.
Yeah.
Where the regular light does not warm, the ice freezes over it and it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, right there he mentions that.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
There was so it turns out that the government ignored this very useful part of the LEDs. So in a cold area like where you're at, it was nice to have that warmth. In a chicken coop, it was nice to have an incandescent to help keep the chickens warm. In the headlights, the ice now freezes up, and it's like, how do you get the ice off your headlights? So there was a benefit to having that heat. It wasn't all just bad, as the government had said.
Gotcha.
Right. Now, according to Harold, also, he's saying Trump has brought back incandescents. Is that, I can't find them in the store. Is that true that you know of, Mark?
It's not exactly true, but there's a sort of this trend. So when Trump became the president the second time, he signed an executive order. As you might know, he's sort of anti these, like he's talked about shower heads and he's talked about light. He's on the right track on this. And then Senator Mike Lee from Utah has introduced what's called the LIT Act, L-I-T, Liberating Incandescent Technology. So this is a bill that's in Congress now. And the bill simply says, delete the Department of Energy regulation. So currently the regulation says minimum 45 lumens per watt. It's not an explicit ban of the incandescent light bulb, but it's a sort of a trickery way to force out the incandescent. So if Congress were to pass this LIT Act, then that restriction would go away. One of the problems is, well, what happened to all the manufacturers? They all got forced out of business.
Right.
So you'd have to sort of start from scratch. But the incandescent light bulb is so simple, and the LEDs are so complicated and so much e-waste and such. So we support that LIT Act, get that ability to allow manufacturers to make it again. And so that would be great. So President Trump is not explicitly bringing back incandescents, but there is sort of this openness to sort of getting rid of this mandate to have LEDs. And then the other area that we really want is Secretary Kennedy Jr. from the Health and Human Services and his Make America Healthy Again. He's now in charge of the Food and Drug Administration.
Right.
So we have a petition. We have a lot of petitions, but we have one that's recent that we submitted in December of 2025. And this requests that the Food and Drug Administration do their job. And one of their jobs is to make a report for Congress to let Congress know what's going on with LEDs. So the FDA has 180 days now to respond. We've been told that the FDA has the petition. They're reviewing it. I've had a lot of experience with the FDA, and they've denied all of our petitions or ignored them so far. I've sued them. I've sued the FDA. I have a case in federal court right now. But this one, we've got the attention of Secretary Kennedy. So by whatever that is, June or so, we're hoping for a response. And then once the FDA creates the report, then that's going to expose all this stuff about LEDs.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I looked and I see Amazon is selling incandescent lights, but are they legit? But they're quite pricey.
Yeah, what a disaster. Why? What a dumb decision. So there are specialty bulbs. So anybody who says, oh, I can't find an incandescent, the little trick is search for specialty bulbs. You could do oven lights. You can do what's called rough service lights, specialties for like theaters and stuff. But the cost is higher. But be careful when you're searching on Amazon. They'll often use marketing terms like incandescent similar or equivalent. And so that word incandescent is there. And so you buy it and, well, it wasn't an incandescent. It was incandescent equivalent. Nah, that's marketing stuff. So be careful as a shopper.
Okay. I've got a question for you with regard to, maybe you found this in your research, but there's a bill, you're saying there's a bill to pretty much bring back the incandescent lights, but the Lit Act, but did it, and here's where I get into the whole government thing. Was it the rules that got rid of incandescent lights and brought LED, was that just determined by unelected bureaucrats in the FDA and wherever else? In other words, there was no legislation that I remember that said, hey, you can't use incandescents anymore. Was it actually a bill that stopped us from using that, and it requires a bill to get it back? Or was this just, again, unelected bureaucrats telling us what we have to do?
No, this was Congress did this. But they didn't they knew that, just saying we're banning incandescents is not going to be popular with the public. So there's sort of an underhanded way of accomplishing the same task. So they set the limit to 45 lumens per watt and said any what's called a general service lamp, which is your household light bulb.
Right.
Anybody that manufactures that has to make sure that the light bulb emits at least 45 lumens for every watt. Well, there was a technology, and could be a technology that I think is either Harvard or MIT. I think MIT put these little specks of metal inside the incandescent light bulb, and it reflects a lot of the heat back, and then it bounces around. And so they could actually achieve maybe 40 lumens per watt, maybe more than 45. So they could have actually explored that technology. But instead, the whole industry, the government pushed the industry. They had all kinds of consultants and meetings and this was not just sort of happenstance. This was the government really, really, really pushing for this light, which they skipped the step of, is this light safe? They just skipped that step.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So no. So Congress forced it, but then during the Biden administration, they were even trying to up it to like 100, something like that, 110 or something lumens per watt. So like even higher. So when Trump got elected, that effort stopped, and then Senator Mike Lee is just saying, this whole experiment was dumb and a mistake, and let's undo the whole experiment. So Senator Lee's, it's a bill, right? And so he's trying to get sponsors and he's trying to get it passed, and that would undo this government regulations. The government regulations are, they start from acts of Congress, but then the regulations themselves are the sort of specifics. And so he sort of wants to undo that, so to allow this opportunity for incandescents to come back.
Now, Tom says that he believes that there's a Sylvania and St. Mary's, PA is still making the incandescent light bulb. Does anybody know if that's true?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I saw that too, Fred. Let me ask you this, because I was going to and I'll bring your website up here. I was kind of looking for, do you know if that bill from Mike Lee is in committee? Is it, what's the status of it right now?
It was introduced, I believe, in April of 2025, and liberating incandescent technology. So you'd have to do a search on it to see where it's sitting. I don't think it's moved anywhere.
The reason I asked that, I was wondering if, if we could start contacting our representatives across the country to try to have this thing moved along.
Yeah.
A lot of times these bills get introduced and they get stuck in committee and they die there.
Let me, if I could, then your listeners, our website is softlights.org, softlights.org. And we have our two main petitions, or I guess there's three now. We have our three, and one is the newest there, that link at the top in the red. That's our petition to the FDA.
Is that right here, you mean?
Correct. So if
Under
you were
home.
right, this is our homepage, and if you were to go to this petition, it's an opportunity for your listeners to submit their comments. So in the upper left is a button there. It says comment, and it's not set up quite that easy. There's a little drop down, and so they can choose individual consumer, and then they can enter their comment and tell the government how they feel about LED lights. It could be about LED headlights. It could be about incandescent lights. It could be about street lights, the flashing lights on police cars, whatever you want to say. And then this becomes part of the public record. So the government is forced to review these public comments, and they're going to have to respond to this petition by June. And this is the one that says that they need to do a report to Congress. So once these, I've been trying for years to get them to do that report, and they haven't done it. So I finally figured out this mechanism to force them. And if they don't do it, I'm going to file a lawsuit.
Okay.
But this is an opportunity for public comment.
I see you've got a section here for law and action, and looks like there's a lot of good information on there. Food and Drug Administration document.
Right. So I've tried to capture over the last several years all the action. So it's pretty dense. So if people want to look in there, they can see that we're trying, that we're filing regulatory petitions, we're filing lawsuits, we're trying to get somebody in the government to listen about this problem.
You know what's crazy about it is, why wouldn't they just make both types of light bulbs and let people choose what they want instead of controlling the market on how they're produced?
Well, that was my point right along.
That's a great question. Crazy. Yeah. So it's unintended consequences. So if you were to, say, replace one light bulb with another light bulb,
right,
a one-to-one replacement, and the one light bulb uses less energy, then the consumer is saving money. They're having to build less power plants. There's less pollution coming out. The whole system. It's a better. Everything's good. What they didn't take into account was the fact that LEDs are now so cheap and so small that they can be placed in places where we didn't have them before. These LEDs are now everywhere. You buy a power tool like a drill, they got a little LED on it. It's way too bright. I got tape all over all my tools because I don't want that thing shining me in the eyes. So LEDs are now they're just decorative stuff. So it's debatable whether they've saved any energy or not, but I can tell you for sure light pollution has increased dramatically since the switch to LEDs. And so that light pollution is really, really bad for us. It's really impacting our ability to our health. So at night, we need it to be dark. We need to be seeing the stars, and everything needs to be dark because this is when our cells repair themselves at night. And without that, with light pollution, the whole hormonal process in our bodies is interrupted, and this repair process is not occurring. And so our risk of all kinds of diseases has increased dramatically because of light pollution. So, for example, heart disease, diabetes risk, cancers like prostate cancer and breast cancer.
It's a question that just escaped me, that I was going to ask about. Oh boy, it just left my mind. I go ahead and fill in. Maybe it'll come back to me.
I'm not used to the host. I lose my place a lot of times, but the host.
Well, I make it a point to write if it's an important point to write it down, and then right when I was saying that, I thought of this other thing, and it, and I got my mind on the subject of the immune system and so on.
Well, it's a problem when they're.
What? Go ahead, Fred. Oh, Fred froze there, I think. Uh-oh. So let me. What's your opinion? Now, we know bureaucracy runs slow. What's your opinion why the FDA is not complying with getting this information out?
Yeah, it's astonishing. So there is a mandate. You mentioned it at the top of the show. It's 21 USC, which stands for United States Code 360 II, which directs the Food and Drug Administration to develop an electronic radiation control program. So Congress has done that correctly. Congress passed the law, established this requirement to have an electronic product radiation control program, because when these electronic devices were first being invented like 150 years ago, this radiation problem showed itself early on. So when they invented X-ray machines, people used to put their feet under these in the public spaces and have their feet X-rayed. And then we started finding out that people were getting sick. And microwave ovens, when they were first invented, were leaking all kinds of radio frequency radiation. So it's electromagnetic radiation is both super powerful and useful and super dangerous at the same time. You've got to have regulations on it. You've got to make sure, because the manufacturers, they don't care. They'll make whatever. So it's up to the government to set these policies. Well, this 360 II and the Electronic Radiation Control Program, the FDA is just simply ignoring that right now. They're not doing anything. And today's show is about LEDs, but they're also ignoring it for cell phone towers and cell phones, Wi-Fi routers, smart meters, all the RF stuff.
Right.
And one of the reasons that's occurred is because the department is called the Center for Devices and Radiological Health, the CDRH. That's underneath the FDA. All their money that comes in is from Congress passed a law that allowed the device manufacturers for medical devices to fund the FDA's research. So all the money that comes in is funded towards medical stuff. Regular stuff, regular products like street lights and household light bulbs and flashing lights and stuff, and cell phone towers and Wi-Fi and things like that, they just don't funnel any money in there. And the leadership is so dishonest at the FDA that they've just ignored it. So the Soft Lights Foundation has submitted these petitions and they've denied them. And so I have a lawsuit that I filed last year specifically for LED car headlights. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so this is tricky business to try to win a lawsuit, but it is under review, and I'm trying to compel the FDA to do their job, to actually, and one of the parts of that 360 II is that they're supposed to work with other agencies. It's called a non-discretionary requirement. It's mandated. So I will sue, I will whatever, do what I can, get members of Congress can to get the FDA to do their job.
Yeah, I just remembered what it was that I was going to ask you about. I remember early on when LEDs first came out, and again, I'm against any kind of mandate like that. I believe in choice. So I did a little. I remember doing some research, and one of the things that did talk about in the looking at all this was it did have a flickering effect. It was such that I remember reading it. It was such that the human eye may not be able to outwardly discern and see the flicker, but nonetheless it was still flickering and in your eye, whether it be subconsciously or whatever, would pick it up. But when I was preparing for this podcast and doing some of my research, I did a little search on the internet about the flickering, and every link I found denies that occurs. So somewhere along the way, all of a sudden it went from yes, they flicker to no, they don't flicker. So I'm wondering if that's intentionally, again, call me a conspiracy theorist if you want, but just like our show gets shadow banned and censored, I'm certain that certain reports that would be negative to the LED industry are being censored as well. Have you found anything to that effect?
Well, that's a little surprising to me. The digital flicker is a big deal. The Department of Energy is aware of this. They have a research area, Pacific Northwest National Laboratories, that has done some research, and that should have been established before they had all these mandates. And so you're correct on the fact that just because your eyes don't see the flicker doesn't mean that it's not, your body's not feeling this pulse. Turns out that we have detectors all throughout our body. These are called opsins. These are proteins throughout our skin and in our blood vessels and even inside our brain and everywhere that detects light. So it's not just through our eyes. And so this is very important information. So when the light pulses, and especially on, off, right, on, off, the cell is hit with the energy. It's got to dissipate somehow. And so even if we're not consciously aware of it, so many people can feel that digital flicker. So they used to think that after 100 hertz, so if it's cycling on, off, faster than 100 hertz, then it's fine, right? You don't notice.
You don't notice, right?
Each individual is different. Some people can detect 200 hertz, 300, 400 hertz, and then our bodies can detect at least as high as 10,000 hertz. So the digital on-off is a dangerous thing. And so that's why the incandescent light bulb, even though it's got a little flicker, our household current is a sine wave. So it's flickering a little bit. There's a little delay. It doesn't go on, off digitally like that. So it's much more tolerable. So right. You want to stay away from any flicker. And that's one of the reasons LEDs are bad.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we got, as I mentioned before, Mark, because of a couple platforms we're on that have a hard break at 10, and they will cut us off at 10 o'clock. We're going to be we're on our last 6 minutes here. Want to take this opportunity just for any last comments that you want to make, anything you want to, I showed your website there. Anything you want to say to wrap this up? Go ahead. You got it.
Oh, well, thanks for the opportunity. All right. So our website is softlights.org. You can go there and take a look, and there's a couple of petitions. One is our petition to the FDA. That's just this red link. That's not very prominent. The other one's called an LED incident report. We are submitting these to the Food and Drug Administration separately. We've been doing that since April of 2024. So that orange button allows people to describe the impacts of LEDs, because the FDA is still saying, we're not aware of any problems. So these LED incident reports prove to them that there is a problem. Then we have a blue button for headlights petition that links to the change.org. Sign that petition. These are valuable. I wanted to just mention, because it just came up, a state legislator, Henry Dillon in West Virginia, just introduced a proclamation bill into the state legislature for Blue Light Awareness Day. This is something that your listeners could do at their levels, contact their state legislator. And October 10th is now designated as Blue Light Awareness Day. And the reason that's valuable is because the proclamation itself describes the hazards of blue wavelength light. This is not, you don't want to be around artificial blue wavelength light, especially at night. You do want to get out into the sunshine during the day to set your clock, to get that blue light, to get that infrared light. So spend some time, if you can. Maybe there's no sun in Pennsylvania right now, but
It's rare sometimes this time of year. Yeah.
Yeah, find that opportunity. So, stick with the natural lighting sources as best you can, and talk to your boss at work. Call your city council member. We also have now a proposal for a lighting ordinance, which a city can take a look at. It's extensive. It's got all the documentation for the research studies, and then it proposes lighting ordinances to help keep us safe. So I don't know about you guys, but when I go into a city at night, I can't see anything. It's really so much light that I just can't wait to get home. So this is a failure of governments to sort of limit this glare. And so our lighting proposal can be provided to cities. They can contact me through our website. I can send it to the listener. They can submit it to their city council for review and for adoption.
Okay,
So,
great. Right.
So thank you for this opportunity to share all this information on your show with your listeners.
Yeah. One thing we always do, Mark, as a matter of practice on this podcast is I like to say we pray ourselves out of here. And Fred, I'm glad you made it back on, because Fred is our prayer champion here. And Fred, I'm going to ask you, as you close us out in prayer, to lift Mark up and the work that he's doing in his foundation. And we'll just leave it at that. So go ahead, Fred.
All right. Thank you, Lord. For all those who are listening, I pray, Lord, that you would give us wisdom, Lord, and help us understand what's really going on. I always know that if the government's got their hands involved in it, it's a little bit shady. So I ask, Lord, that you protect Mark and give him some support in his company and this whole LED fight, Lord. I know that it's really hard to see when we're out there. I know it's, for me, it is. So I ask, Lord, that you would bless everyone who's listening, give everybody wisdom. I ask, Lord, you bring the darkness to the light. And considering that we're talking about LEDs, the Lord, ask that you would give us wisdom and understanding and how we should handle this, and bless all the listeners and the viewers and give us understanding in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Fred. And again, thank you, Mark. And for everybody out there, regardless of where I'm looking out my window here and seeing a very cold Pennsylvania, but I hope wherever you are, it's sunny and 70. But regardless, wherever you are, have a wonderful day today. Be blessed.